go ahead and call the meeting. Hit that little button there. Yep. And then I'll call the meeting to order. And we're just missing Jill, but did you want to do the roll call, Debbie?
Sure. Commissioner Stone Road is walking.
Yes, I'm walking and I'm here. Present.
Commissioner Filatico,
Here.
Commissioner Canopa. Commissioner Vaughn.
Here.
Commissioner Roller.
I'm here.
Commissioner Payne.
Here.
And Commissioner Van Buren, which I do not see.
Okay. All right. She might be just running late. Can kick on. She did respond today that she was going to attend.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you. And next we have business from the public. Can I understand we have a gentleman that would like to present something to the commission this evening? And Miles, let's see, where'd you go on the screen? Okay, there. If you'd like to introduce yourself and state your name, you might have to spell your last name for the record, and let us know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I forgot I saw my name set to just Miles W on here. Hi, I'm Miles Wilson. I'm a senior here at West Albany High School, and I'm currently in West Albany High School, one of the practice rooms right now. So it's a bunch of people walking by out there. I have a sign up that I'm in a Zoom meeting, so hopefully no one opens the door. Anyways, yep, that is the presentation. So I have a weird thing. So I'm going to assume a lot of you have probably been stopped by the train on Queen Avenue before, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
it's that one right there, the gray and red engine. I don't even know where to start with. I'm terrible at speaking in front of audiences. The thing is over 70 years old. It was delivered in November of 1952. And long story short, it's been slated for scrapping soon. And my idea is we buy the frame at scrap value, and we do something like the steam locomotive over in Avery Park in Corvallis. We can just put it on display in a park here. It looks like Jill should do. So if you can go, I think the first couple pictures on here. So this guy, he was delivered in 1952, November 1952, to the old Southern Pacific Railroad. Spent most of its life in California, but and it was rebuilt at one point in the 70s. So it's not entirely original. It's still a 7-year locomotive. I think third picture here is another picture of him doing so. Basically, all he does now is he's the yard switcher here. It's the oldest locomotive in their entire fleet. It just runs the cars back and forth, and city planners a while back just happened to put Queen Avenue right through the middle of a whole bunch of switches. So one of the busiest parts of the entire yard. If you go to the fourth picture here, that is it in 1952 as delivered. It was different paint job back then, different number. It's had like 5 different numbers throughout its life, but this thing, basically, the point I'm getting is this thing is old. It is one of the oldest still serving locomotives on the planet. Like it was built and it's been like actively serving on railroads before most residents here have been born. And one more thing, if you go to the next slide, this thing ran alongside steam locomotives in like day-to-day use. This was Southern Pacific Railroad, guys owned it. This was their last locomotive, steam locomotive in service, which was retired 6 years after 1501 was made. So this thing was part of the transition era, a really like kind of ignored and neglected era. Yeah, that's 1501, the one in the center there, under one of its other names, 2701. You can see there, this thing has insane history. And it was January of this, I can't remember how I have the pictures ordered. I think the next one, basically they made 188. They made 188 of these things, and there's only 7 left. One on the top left there is the only other one with its scarlet and gray paint. Yeah, it's the only one I know for sure still runs on museum stuff. C197, 608, 6008, those are preserved but in sad shape. The one on the bottom left, it had another one that got scrapped a year and a half ago, and it could probably be scrapped soon. 1398 is the only other one that might still be in revenue service and hasn't been seen for years. 401 was retired recently and is most likely at a museum now. It was agreed that it would be a museum. Basically, there's only 7 of these things left. Probably going to go down to 6. Might already be at 6 at this point. So yeah, and this is where it comes in. As far as I know, Portland Western was not planning on retiring this thing anytime soon. But back about 10 years ago, they were doing a rebuild program on a lot of their locomotives, like hundreds of locomotives, and inadvertently didn't update 7 or no, 11. It was 11 to like fully up-to-date standards. And it was, as far as we can know, it was all accidental. But the Environmental Protection Agency caught wind of it and issued a like good intention but very poorly worded thing. And basically to appease all the bureaucrats, Genesee and Wyoming, parent company of Portland Western, agreed to scrap 88 of their locomotives, most of which are like 60, 70 years old. Some last of their kinds. And basically this whole here is saying that there's no way there's specific wording that they cannot let these things go in operational condition. They have to be disabled permanently. And it'll be incredibly expensive for them to re-engine it. But once they take the current engine out, they're free to do whatever they want with the locomotive. So they could try to pay a bunch to re-engine it, or they could just sell it for scrap value. And if they're selling it for scrap value, they'll probably take all the electrical components, the wheel of the trucks, motors, everything off. But that frame itself isn't all too heavy compared to all the stuff that's housed inside of it. It would still be expensive, but it could be doable. So I don't know where I've been going with this. Basically, it is an insanely rare, significant locomotive. And we could try and buy it and do something like this with it. Just put it on display in a park, put a couple like boards up explaining its history, its significance, its role in replacing steam locomotives. Really weird era of history where you could see like modern looking diesels running alongside steam. Like this one was also retired in 59, so this thing was running at the same time as 1501. A really weird overlooked part of history. And there's not really, most of these diesels have been just scrapped and thrown away. Barely any enter preservation. So it would, on top of being a cool display, it would be a very unique display. Like one of the only ones of its kind in the entire country. So I don't think I had many other, but I think the next picture in there was, yeah. So at the absolute most, like buying the entire locomotive at scrap value would be 26,000. Probably like only 10 or 15,000 if I were to guess, but there's no hard data on how much the frame itself weighs. Nevada Northern, when they were moving their complete SD7, they estimated about $250 per mile by truck. So moving it, and like the railroad runs like right through all the like actually decent spots we could put it. So moving costs probably won't be too bad except for cranes to move on and off. So I don't think I had much else in there. I think it was just, yeah. God, I don't know. Yeah. It's a
Okay,
rare locomotive. It would be a basically one of a kind display to have it like out in a park in public and not sitting in a museum. You can
Yep.
do a really cool thing with it. But if we
It
put it in
would.
like Monteith with all the waterfront redevelopment stuff going on right now, Portland Western owns tracks. They own the tracks that go right by Monteith, so we wouldn't even have to deal with putting it on trucks. You could set up a crane and move it right off the rails and onto the park itself. And it could be integrated into historic downtown
Mhm.
as a unique display there.
Okay. Miles, you actually it's very creative, and I have never seen this request in all my years. But you really did your research, so I'm really impressed with the research that you did in the presentation on it. But does any of the commission members have questions of Miles? Okay. Not seeing any. There is one person, I don't know if you've connected with in the community, but he knows everything about trains and every type of locomotive, and he takes tons of photos, and that's Cameron Settlemeyer. Have you heard of Cameron?
Don't believe-
He's on some of our city boards, but he'd be a great person to even to really know. I mean, that guy knows everything about trains and locomotives, and he takes tons of photos, and so he would be one to kind of connect with
Okay, I'm gonna
on
make
it.
a-
It would take quite a plan to come up. It would take community support
Yes.
to be able to, come up with having a place for the locomotive, and then there's the restoration cost.
I'm very aware.
Yeah, sometimes
And that
it
would be
sort
very
of,
expensive.
sometimes what has been done in the community when there is an effort like that, that is not one of our core services of the city, would be to form a nonprofit and then raise funds to be able to be able to fully, find a location and restore it. But that's just some thoughts. But Kim, did you have anything you wanted to kind of mention to Miles on the city parks side of it?
Sure. So Miles has been great. We've been emailing back and forth. And I let him know that unfortunately, due to our budgetary situation, we focus primarily on what's been indicated in our master plan and in our CIP. But I said this would probably be a good group to kind of gauge potential interest or gain, get additional connections. Do you think if I'll reach out to see if Cameron's okay with me passing along his contact information to you, Miles, as he might be, as Sharon said, as connecting, and then we can kind of go from there. Well, I say we'll go from there. You will have additional resources to figure out if there's passion in the community and if it might be a good fit.
Because I know the one in Avery Park in Corvallis was funded by the Lions Club. It wasn't funded by Parks and Rec at all, but considering, putting it in a park, this was the most important place to ask.
And we would,
Yeah.
if funds were generated for it, it would be something that our team would have to look at to figure out as far as management placement, we would just want to make sure that it doesn't become a spot for inappropriate gathering.
The interior, there's not really much inside. You could just like weld the door shut, and all it would be left with would be a couple walkways on the side, and there wouldn't be any really concealed parts. It wouldn't end up with any more like concealed gathering spots than putting a rock in place.
All right.
And it's only got those, definitely one door into the cab. Some of them would have another door in the hood, but otherwise it's like one or two doors to the inside, but that can be welded shut.
I see Aaron has his hand up.
Yeah, hey, Miles, do you have a time frame of when they have to scrap this or when they're supposed to scrap it?
There is, as far as I know, there's no hard data on when each individual one is going to be scrapped, but the total of 88 that they're going to be scrapping, there's 5 different phases they have to go through. Each phase ends on December 31st of that year up to December 31st, 2025.
Okay.
And they just have to scrap that amount, like X amount, like 14 or something, at least per phase. But there's nothing about which ones have to be in what phase. So for all I know, this thing could stay until December 31st, 2025.
Okay, thank you.
It's been just yesterday, that last pick in the folder, or the presentation, was the one time I've seen it leave the yard in my life. Only other time I've seen it leave the yard, apart from one instance in 2009. That's the only other time it's been documented to leave the yard. So it's basically, it is their yard locomotive, and that is Portland Western's main yard, and it's tried and true. It works there. I don't see them getting rid of it if they don't have to. So it is
Okay.
very heavily used and trusted here.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Any other questions? So, okay, well, thank you so much, Miles.
Thank you
So,
for asking.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate it.
I'm really nervous talking in front of
Oh, no,
crowds.
you did great.
Okay.
Yeah, you did wonderful.
You did awesome, Miles.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really good job.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell your robotics team.
Yeah, I know Aaron.
Oh, wonderful. All
Thank you.
right, thank you.
Miles, thank you for bringing that to us, because now you have all these other people who can share that information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And also
Thank you.
funding, there is a chance this thing is like the nichest of niche micro celebrities in the online community. It is a decently well-known locomotive. There is a chance of getting funding online from the greater Railroad community about it. The publication Railfan and Railroad magazine been going for like 50 years at this point. They're the ones, it was their post about it, which is how I learned about the entire court case, which was in like January. And they used 1501 as their main cover picture of all 88 being scrapped. It is like, this thing is a like decently well-known locomotive, and there's a lot of backlash when it was announced that it was going to be scrapped. So there's a pretty good chance we could get some funding online from it.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Got 3
Welcome,
minutes to
Jill.
go.
I saw that you came on. And okay, Commission, next on the agenda, because I don't believe there's anybody else that came on. Let's see. Yep. Okay. And would be approval of the minutes if everybody's had a chance to review them, and if there isn't any changes needed, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the minutes from February 1st.
All right, is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, any discussion on the minutes? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 And anyone opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, the next is for scheduled business would be Park Services Officer. And is it Marimar?
Yeah, Marimar, or you can call me Mary too.
Mary, okay.
Yeah.
But it's Marimar, so.
Yeah.
Marina. Okay, well, welcome. Thank you for, coming to the commission and being able to kind of tell us about your position, and looking forward to it. And I do have to say, this position has been in the works for 20 years. It has taken the city 20 years to implement it. Our first police and fire levy, when we went to the voters back in 2002, was for a part-time parks ranger, and the position was never fulfilled. So the next time we renewed that levy, as I did the campaign to it, I thought, I'm taking that off. I'm not going to the voters on a position that was never created. So finally
Well, I'm
made
glad
it.
to be here.
Yeah, so, okay, so, yep. Would you like to tell it?
Yeah,
that's-
so sorry, I keep cutting you off.
Oh, no.
I believe I started like in June. I just recently got done with my training and like to be solo, because I don't know if you guys knew I was pregnant. And then I went on 3-month maternity leave, but now I'm back, I'm by myself. The biggest thing that I'm dealing with right now with parks is the graffiti, and like we're trying to really like focus on the homeless staying there overnight and stuff. And I'm trying to be like a resource for both, and give them resources where they can go. And I know that starting, I believe in June, when the parks get really busy with other events, my schedule is going to change, and I'm solely going to be working with the parks department, not so much with the police department. Right now I'm doing like kind of community service officer duty. So like parking complaints, dog complaints and all of that. And then I've been kind of the go-to for like people trespassing in parks and stuff. I think I'm still kind of learning what like the whole job entails, because I feel like we're kind of all trying to figure it out, and every day is kind of different. So I am excited to be here. I know that you guys had talked about that you guys were trying to get a park ranger for a while, so I'm here, and I hope that I do a good job and satisfy everybody and what you guys need. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me. I did want to let you guys know, so I had briefing today with my sergeant, and he wanted me to mention to you guys that there's a new law coming in where we have to kind of provide like a safe zone for the homeless to camp overnight. And I believe that's going to take effect in July. So that's something that we're kind of looking into right now, like where we can set camp up for them and stuff. So, but that's
There is a safe zone that can be used, so I won't say it here publicly, but there is one that's been discussed in the past, so
Mhm.
much prefer that than in our parks, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so, are you gonna be kind of patrolling like all the way up in Simpson Park? Like take the gator and go up, way up into the park? Or is that gonna be left for the officers to do?
So I will be helping with that. They've told me, I actually just got Gator certified too, like last week. So I know during the summer, they want me to take those and do like the Dave Clark Trail and Eads Park behind there. And Simpson is one of those. It is something that I would take an officer with me, like I wouldn't go alone. But I mean, that isn't that's part of our plan to keep the park safe.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. And then is it gonna be daily patrolling the park or just like weekly or monthly?
I believe right now that we've kind of talked about it, like we don't have a set schedule yet, but I know that they talked about doing, there's some tasks that I'll have to do like daily, and then there's others that I'll have weekly. I want to say that the patrolling, like the back of Simpson and Eads, might be like once a weekly thing. Including that Kinder Park, like behind Lowe's, because I know a lot of people hide out back there. So
Mhm.
we're still trying to like come up with an actual timeline of like when I could get with patrol and they could go out there with me and we can see what's going on and make sure everything's the way it should be back there. So
Yeah. Oh, great. Wonderful. I do see a hand up, and that's Aaron.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on Sharon's question, are there set days of the week that you'll be out in the parks, or is it just weekdays, or are you trying to get out there during the weekends too?
So right now my schedule is Wednesday through Saturday. Right now I've been patrolling like on my weekends, especially Saturdays, because it's kind of slow, like on the police side of things. I'll drive through like Simpson Park and Kinder and Eads, but I'll just do like the parking lot. Like I don't go back in the trails or anything. I believe once summer hits, my schedule is going to change and it's going to be Monday through Friday, like 11 to 9 p.m. So I can help with all the events like Summer Sounds and River Rhythms and stuff. So I don't know how much patrolling I will do during the summer out in the parks, but I mean, it's something that I could come in like once a month and do that on weekends.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say there will be a request for you to be at Timberland starting on the 8th of April every Saturday.
Yeah.
Road, there's gonna be parking out there because AYSO holds their soccer out there, and there's always complaints about parking on Blue Ox Road.
Yeah.
Every Saturday starting the 8th of April. So until Memorial Day weekend or before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the fall, it'll be the same way.
Yeah, we dealt with some of that. I think while I was doing my training last time with like soccer, just
Yep.
people parked all alongside of that. So but yeah, we'll make sure to monitor that and try to get better, come up with a better solution, because it sounds like nothing
Oh,
happened.
Solution is just write tickets. They've been
Yeah.
warned enough times, just write tickets, because AYSO warns them all the time. Just start writing tickets and that'll get the message across finally.
Yeah.
But I think also with what Rick's doing with the fields and lower down, that we won't have that much problem going up higher. So
Yeah.
games will be played closer to the parking lot.
Yeah.
It's disheartening to see the amount of graffiti that's been taking place. And then even the damage that I saw that happened out at our, war memorial too. So are we seeing, or Kim might even know, is it how much more percentage this year compared to a year ago or a couple years? I mean, we've dealt with graffiti for 30 years I've been around, but not to the level that we're seeing now.
And I think Rick will probably talk about that in his report at the end, as we are getting really hit really, really hard. And Rick said it's not even summer. So we're prepared that it's going to be probably the worst summer yet. So, and our staff are working on documenting hours and whatnot, but he'll talk more about it, but you're not imagining the uptick. It is very real.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've
is-
taken, oh, sorry, I've taken a
ahead,
few
Mary.
reports on the graffiti already too, like just this year alone, there's been a lot more, so. I know that some of the parks have cameras and I sent out like a ABI on Facebook to see if anybody recognized the person, so. I mean, we can try and do a little bit to try and stop it.
Right. There used to be a program years back, and I think it was Representative Andy Olson got the bill, and that was to have any kind of spray cans had to be locked up behind cases. So I don't know if that still is in place with the stores, you know,
Yeah,
where they were locked up. So then that way the youth couldn't go in and buy spray cans.
the last report I took, I believe was at Timberland Park, and I was looking at the video and it looks like the guy doesn't even use a spray can. It looks like he uses like a paint pen.
Oh, wow.
Those are a lot easier, like if the cop was to go out there and see them and like stop them, those are a lot easier to hide like in your pocket, like as opposed to like a big spray can bottle. So
Yeah.
they're getting creative and stuff. So
Well,
yeah,
they can probably buy anything on Amazon too. So.
yeah.
Oh, boy. So, any other questions for Mary? Oh,
Welcome.
yeah,
Welcome.
you betcha welcome.
Thank
So,
you.
and then when you're there attending those concerts, you're gonna love them too.
Yeah.
Kind of a
Mary, I have a question. This is Jill Van Buren, and one of the volunteer organizations that I work with is Graffiti Chasers. And so the actual head of Graffiti Chasers, Chuck, and I would like to sit down, and talk to you and kind of see if we can dovetail into each other so we're not in each other's way. We get weekly reports from you now. A lot of the times we've already taken care of that graffiti.
Mhm.
But we would like it sometime soon to sit down with you and see how we can assist what you're doing.
Okay.
Okay. Great. That'd be great. It's wonderful to get the volunteers out there, Jill. So, all right. Okay. Did you have any questions for us, Mary? or-
No, I'm
Okay.
I'm glad to be here. I'm excited for the summer and all the events that we have going on. So
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
yeah, you guys have a good night.
You too. Okay, next on the agenda is the possible amendment for the Albany Municipal Code. And Bill, did you want to present that, Bill?
Bill, you're on mute.
Yeah. Oh,
Unmute.
you got- Yep,
There
you're-
we go. I
there
got,
we can hear you.
I'm on my phone, so it's kind of hard. I don't know if you've seen my attachments. I started out with some attachments to some city trees. Some are residential along the curbside. The first couple are curbside trees next to buildings. They're pretty large old maple trees, and they're about 24 to 26 inches in circumference. The other ones are park trees. I think at Tequina Park when I was going for a walk over there. And the bottom two on my chart there, both those trees are under 25 inches in circumference. And one is 10 inches in circumference, and it's quite a large tree. So the current code says that trees can be removed without a permit up to 6.5 feet in circumference or 25 inches in diameter. And that, to me, that's, and I would like to see maybe we could change that and maybe see if we could get a committee or a group together and see if we could take a look at the code and maybe reduce the that diameter code to maybe half of that, maybe 12 inches in diameter, or maybe, I mean, if one city, I think I got toward Lake Oswego, they have 6 inches diameter as their limit. And anything above that, you have to get a permit to have the tree removed. I don't think the city of Corvallis has a limit in their diameter to have a tree removed. They have certain, they're pretty strict over there in Corvallis. So there was another addition And then on my second page of my charts, I had some larger trees. One was a Douglas, big, huge Douglas fir, which could be about 120 years old. And there's also a huge black walnut tree. And I had a little chart there. It could tell you how old the tree would be. And it just had the circumference, and you plug in the type of tree, and 6.5, 70, I think it's 78 inches in diameter, or in circumference, excuse me. The tree would be over 100 years old. And I mean, that's just an estimate. I'm not a tree expert, but some of these trees that could be removed.
I lost you on sound, Bill. No, something must have happened.
Well, he's trying to do that. I think I can, if it's okay, I can speak on that a little bit, Sharon.
Uh-huh.
One of my hats is city forester, and I think Bill's on the right track. A 24-inch tree is a pretty good sized tree. If you can get your arms around it, just kind of rule of thumb, if you can get your arms around it, you don't need a permit. And if you think about that, that's a fairly big tree. I think previous councils have not been very excited about regulating trees more than they are, and the 24-inch is kind of a compromise. I think we would support any effort that Bill or whoever did to try to do something different on that. It would be much better received from a commission or a committee or something like that than just from staff. But it's a different council. They might be open to it. I think you could probably get down to 18 inches. I don't know how far you could get farther than that, but to me, it's certainly something worth looking at because he's right. Everything he's saying is very accurate. So that's what I got.
Rick, can I ask you a couple questions?
Mhm.
You're talking about trees on both city property and private property?
Yes,
Yeah.
trees are regulated on private property if they're over 24 inches. DBH is what the measurement's called. So if you were to hug the tree and reach your arms around it and can get your arms around it, you probably don't need a permit.
Okay.
So city trees are, we take care of those. We try to preserve anything we can, but that's for private trees. So if it's under that size, which can be a pretty big tree, you don't need a permit.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anna, you had your hand up?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Towards the end of last year, we discussed potentially modifying the code for causing damage to trees on private property too. Did that go anywhere, or I don't know.
No,
We discussed it and then we just kind of let it go because it was the end and we were going to be on a new commission. So
Mhm. Yeah, it didn't get past discussion. Again, that's a possible one because sometimes, and you wouldn't think they do it, but people will damage a tree in order to kill it so that then they can get a permit to cut it.
That's
you think
happened.
people would do better than that, but that happened.
Mhm.
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, I did have another proposal I wanted to make. We did talk about trees that could also be topped or almost basically destroy the structure of the tree. And I saw another code from another city where they say if you remove more than 50% of the tree and it damages the tree and it actually basically kills the tree, that is considered like removing the tree, and they could be fined accordingly. And I'd like to see if that would also could be added to our code, because I think that was an issue we brought up last summer where somebody had destroyed a huge old growth oak tree and just topped it, and I think it took all the leaves off, and basically that would end up killing the tree and just or ruining the beauty of the tree. It wouldn't really being, it would take years to ever recover if it could. So I would like to also add that to our code. And one other topic, I guess, on the trees, I think if somebody would remove a tree that had to be removed, that was an Oregon tree, like a Doug fir, an oak, a pine tree that's native to Oregon, that they would also have to replace the tree with another Oregon native tree. And we do have a list of Oregon native trees. There's several hundred of them. And all the way go down to redwoods, to Doug firs, to pines, different kinds of California oaks also grow in Southern Oregon. They also could grow here. So I would also like to see that could be possibly added. But one last topic about the growth rate of a tree. There's another chart, like if you took a red maple tree, just a simple, or a Doug fir, they usually have about a 4.5 inch growth factor and a growth rate, excuse me. And if you took a tree like 10 inches at breast height and it has a growth factor of 4.5, and just with a simple math, that red maple could be 45 years old. And the same with the Doug fir. So that's, I don't know if we could get a committee together to see if we could present this to, I don't know if it'd go to city council or go to.
Yeah, it would have to go to
group.
city council, right?
Right. So I think, Bill, I do know there has been discussion for quite a few years off the tree commission about doing some modifications to our existing code. So some of you, some of the members might not remember. I don't know if it's ever been communicated to the commission. It was a very divisive issue when we got our tree code. So that was back in like 98, I think, when we finally got it. It ended up being a split vote, if I remember right. It was very close. But there's still, if somebody, if they have 5 or more trees, 8 inches or more, they do, in the development code, they do have to get approval for that to cut down 5 or more trees. But what we found in the code is basically it's kind of within a year. So you could cut down 5, and then all of a sudden there's another 5. And so this code has needed a lot of work over the years, but it was never really the right timing with the mix of the council members at that time, because we were really afraid we would lose our total tree ordinance. We were the first city to come up with the 25 inches or more, in diameter for having to get a permit. And Jim Delapore at that time wanted to put that piece into the municipal code, so there would be more enforcement to it, because it basically would be, a violation. And there was one member in the community that did on a Sunday cut down some beautiful, huge 300-year-old oaks. So he was put in jail for that. Jim Delapore took him to court. So that was, that's why he did the municipal code, which was great. That really kind of sent a message to people that you better make sure you get a permit. And that guy's had a burr under his saddle all these years ever since. But so I agree there needs to be some changes. This could be a good timing with new council members. I have no idea where they're sitting at on with regards to trees. But there also needs to be some other work to it. Basically, say a 25-inch tree, if that's an evergreen coniferous tree, like a big fir, is going to grow a lot faster than, say, a white oak or other types of trees, deciduous trees. And sometimes we find that the big fir trees aren't that great of a tree for in the city. I have probably a 60-year-old one in my backyard. And I worry about it coming down someday. So it's, I agree. I think this is it's a great proposal, a good start. I'll kind of leave it to staff of how they would want to take an approach to this, if they want a subcommittee or just keep it as this commission to have further discussion on it.
Can I interject a little bit?
You bet.
I would suggest, and just as a staff suggestion, that I would be willing on the staff end to help facilitate that if there was a group of people that were interested, if they wanted to, people that were interested wanted to email. And by me, I probably will farm it off to Jay Sharp, who's our natural resources person. But I'm pretty aware of the issues, and maybe we start some work on some of those issues and then bring it back to the Parks Commission at some point. So I think that would be a good approach from the staff side. I can't really be the lead of that, but I can help move that along. And Bill is right, and Bill and Anna were both on the, and Jill were all on the tree commission before, so they're aware of the issues we run into.
So
Mhm.
I have what may sound like a silly question. Being a, what do they call it, Tree City USA, are there any limitations involved with that?
Tree City USA is a designation that has to do with how we manage our trees. There's nothing on individual kinds of rules. It says we have to have some tree codes. It says we have to spend so much a year on trees, and there's some other stuff, but there's some guidelines we could certainly look at there. If somebody wants to do some homework, but yeah, what did we just get? 29 years in a row, I think we just did. So.
Mhm. Yeah. Rick, also, I mean, if the commission members want to proceed with this, could you also check with state legislation that has taken place recently, and I think even with House Bill 2001, anything that's pretty much preventing for any sort of middle housing or anything, you can't stop it for anything. So it seems to me, if I remember right, in that bill, there's something even about with trees. So you might want to maybe double check on that, if anything can even be, we can even do tree protection on certain properties. So with that.
Yeah, it's tough with a permit. Yeah, it's tough right now. So
Yeah. Mhm.
whatever the Parks Commission wants to do, if you want to do a subgroup, I'm glad to get with them and go from there. If there's people that are interested, and I'm guessing, well, I know Bill's interested, I'm guessing Anna's interested, and I don't know where Jill is on it.
Mhm. Okay, so commission members, do you want to proceed with a subgroup?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would, this is Jill. I would be interested. I don't want to take away from any of our newer members, but yeah, I'd be interested in that.
Okay,
Mhm.
and Anna?
Yep.
Anyone else?
Yes,
Was that Jim?
that was.
Okay. And then that would end up being a quorum of the group too. So that would have to be a public, considering as a public meeting then too, with meeting notice. But all it, staff can end up working through that, but at least you have 4 little boxes there with some little white heads on it, and plus Anna's that would like to be involved. So, okay. Any other questions? Questions of staff? All right. Well, Bill, I really appreciate you bringing this forward. So I agree something needs to be done. Okay. Next agenda item is the waterfront project for Kim and Rick on the trees.
Sure. So the last week or so, the city of Albany has ended up in the newspaper and on local blogs for the removal of trees that are associated with the waterfront project. And so we get a lot of questions as they're like, it's your park, this must be your project. And we kindly remind folks that Parks and Recreation, we are just a stakeholder. It is actually a CARA project that has been in the works for over 20 years. And so while we are able to help facilitate some information, it is not our project. we are getting resources out of it, but we are not the end all be all. So 86 trees were removed down off the Dave Clark Path and in Monteith River Park since last Thursday. They moved fast, and I believe they wrapped up yesterday. These were trees that had been looked at by an arborist, and through this whole process had been marked. Rick can chat more about specifics on it, but they were being removed. They're X'd for removal either due to imminent, a sooner death and decay than a normal life tree span. They were needed to be removed in order for infrastructure to go in, or they were expected to potentially be a hazard moving forward. So there was quite a bit of comment. With that said, this has been a public process, and change is never easy. We don't take taking down trees very lightly, but the work has been completed. And on our end, for our department, it has thankfully quieted down a little bit. Stacy Bell Castro is the lead engineer for the city and has been kind of the point person as of right now. And Nick is going to be the project manager on the city. So if any other additional questions come up, we're going to be sending folks their way, as they are actually the ones who are in charge of the process and know all the information. But we just kind of wanted to let you know, yes, we are aware of it. We are doing everything on our side to provide additional information as to the why and the how, but also at the same time letting folks know that this is not Parks and Recreation going and cutting down all the trees. We are a stakeholder in a much larger project. Any questions?
Is there any questions? So, yeah, I did see that. There was quite a bit of folks pretty upset about over the trees, and you know, and it is hard if you're going to be doing a revitalizing of the whole area. It was, you know, pretty much known from day one that there was going to be some tree removal. So, but also even along the riverfront, there was a lot along the waterfront. There was a lot of trees that seemed very hazardous. So, but it'll be a nice project when it's done.
What kind of trees are they going to replace them with? They said native trees are going to be put in.
It's not all native, but they are focusing on the native, particularly in the area that's not right in the park. In the park, there's some of both. If you're really interested, I've got a packet that thick of it that you're welcome to come take a look at.
Rick, do you know how many trees will be replaced? That's the question I keep getting.
I believe Kim can I think there's 300 plants. They're not all trees, but a lot of them are that are coming back in. Did I get that number right?
I think it's 3,000 between the whole riparian corridor and doing the restoration down there, because they're going to be clearing out a ton of the invasives. And so, you know, there are 86 trees that came out. There will be 3,000 new you know, plants that will go in to help hopefully manage the air, be easier to manage in the area, and be a better fit for our community.
If anybody's really interested, they could email me and I can get you that information. I don't know exactly what it is. I was involved in the process. I just don't remember how many there were.
And Peter, the city manager, presented some information letting us know, you know, when Bryant Park was put in, more trees than this were cleared from that. When Timberland Park was put in, more trees were cleared from this. If you look in Corvallis, larger trees were taken from there, and they have, you know, smaller acreage. I believe it's a smaller acreage. And so while this is difficult, it is the price of having these types of amenities put up. And we like to think that we're still taking very good care of Bryant Park and Timberland Park and other areas that have been managed this way. So it's temporary. Well, it's pain right now, but we're hoping for a bright future.
I'll be curious too, when you, you know, remove the stuff along the riverfront. Sometimes once you clear things, old native type stuff will stop popping up, you know, like flowers and just so we got rid of that Japanese knotweed quite a few years ago. Just, I hope you don't, have that start sprouting up again. That stuff's horrible. Horrible to get rid of, but. Okay, any other questions over the waterfront?
Did this, I assume it went through like a whole public comment process already, right? So, okay.
Yeah, there was community meetings that was down, at the riverfront, and there was quite a bit, but see, it's been a couple years now. So then it took a while to get the bids and all that. So everybody sort of forgot about it, but yeah, it wasn't really mentioned about the tree removal. I do have to admit that it was not really discussed about tree removal at that point, but it was sort of kind of a given. You're going to know that you're going to want to open up the riverfront. There was going to be a lot of, trees and foliage removed. So, but yeah. So good question, Anna. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? All right, thank you, Kim and Rick. And now, Rick, you have a tree violation, huh?
Yeah, one of the roles that have been of the tree commission, and now it's coming to all of you, is to enforce when the rules that are in place are broken. And we don't have it happen all that often. It's typically accidental, although they should know. People that cut trees for a living in town or in the county know about our regulations. Not every town regulates. So we had a situation at 11. So in this case, I'm asking for your support or permission to impose a fine. We had a violation at 1101 Century Drive Northeast, which is a property that the owner is trying to upgrade. It's a set of old, I assume that at one point it was a highway side place, hotel or motel kinds of things back in the day, but older buildings they're trying to upgrade. What they did was they cut some big, at least 2 very large trees. They weren't anything particularly special. And then at least 3 or 4 more that were of size that needed permits. So it was a pretty big violation. I went on the site, talked to the people that were doing the work, who happened to be one of the owners, left him my information and said, I can't glue these trees back up. You can expect that you're going to get cited for it, and there'll be a fine. If you get, I realize it was not on purpose. Get back to me next week. Well, that was about 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard a thing. And so what I am suggesting is the approval to, that I have the approval to try to ticket them with a fine of $2,500. $2,500 is a for a corp. This is a small corporation. For a corporation, it's enough to give them the penalty, but not so much that the judge is going to say no. I don't think. It seems like the right number. We don't have a set number to use. We've done a number of things before. We've had accidentals that have given money to scholarships, have given money to some of our tree projects, and that. And again, it doesn't happen all that often. Every couple of years, on average, I would say. But that's what I'm asking for, and working. I can work with police to cite them for that. I guess the major concern was they were under real clear instructions that we needed to talk about it, because it was on a Friday, I think. Yeah, it was on a Friday. We needed to talk about it, and I don't know if their approach was, well, if it'll just go away, and it doesn't go away. So that's what I'm asking for the commission to approve me to take that action.
So it's looking at the property then. So it actually is an out-of-town investment company. So they're just probably planning on developing, but yeah, to be consistent, it's not the first time. I mean, that people have been fined, and you can't, you got to be consistent. You're going to do one, you got to do them all. So I agree, Rick, that it
One of the,
should be cited. So
and it happens occasionally. One of the prominent businessmen in town had it happen on one of his properties. He didn't even know it was happening at one time, and we ended up fining him because he did. We could have fined him, but instead he gave about this much money to some of the educational programs that we did. So,
Mhm.
it is everybody, if they break it, there is some penalty.
Right.
How did you come up with 2,500? Is that,
There's not a set amount that it says. 2,500 is consistent with what we've done in the past. It's actually a fairly large fine for what we've done in the past. The time or so that I've tried to go more than that, our judges weren't going to have it.
right?
So it's a number. It just seems like a fair number, but a number that gives them the idea that you just really
Right.
shouldn't do that.
Mhm.
I don't know if you have tried to take have you seen the trees before they were removed, or do you know what kind they were? You couldn't tell what kind they were?
I saw there were at least 3 Douglas firs. There was a great big old maple, 2 great big old maples that were quite large. Again, they weren't prized trees. We probably would have worked through the permitting system on some of them. The Douglas firs definitely wouldn't have been able to come out, and they
Right.
weren't 24 inches, but they were over the number of trees you can take out.
Right. Right. Yeah, I guess the other thing I know, we look at pictures, like, I don't know if you got to Google Maps and you could, sometimes they have a picture of the property, and maybe you could have a little historic picture of the trees in case they do bring up that issue. Like, I don't know if you've done that, gone to a Google map on the site, and it'll show
Yeah,
if it does have a picture of the tree before it was removed.
Yeah, we can do that on the city's mapping. I took some pictures while I was on site. I haven't actually touched on site since that day because I wouldn't be welcome there.
Okay. Well, I mean, my thought is I agree that they need to be fined.
Okay, what does the other commissioners feel? We really need to give clear direction to staff, so that have to be in a motion.
I'd make a motion to fine that company $2,500. I don't have their name, but
Yeah, a second.
All right, and Anna did a second. Okay, any discussion on this motion? Any questions, concerns? Okay, not seeing any. All right, and so the motion would be to direct staff to proceed with the fine for removing the trees and without approval. And all those in favor say aye.
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 And anyone opposed, same sign? Okay, you've got your motion there, clear direction there, Rick.
Thank you. This
Okay.
has been a tree heavy meeting. I think that's the last we're going to talk about trees today.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, next we have meeting in person.
Sure.
Kim.
So at our last meeting, we had a really great discussion, and there was a very clear consensus that this group prefers to meet virtually moving forward. We do want to make sure that we're providing an opportunity for some community members who maybe are not as tech savvy or a little bit intimidated through this process. And so in chatting about it, we are proposing that we do a hybrid meeting in May. And so folks are still welcome to attend virtually, but we will have an in-person option for that meeting just to make sure that we're removing any barriers that might exist. So wanted to let you know well ahead of time, it'll be your choice as to how you would like to proceed forward. Rick, Debbie, Rose, and I will all be there with smiling faces. But we wanted to let you know in advance that the May, I think it's 6th, meeting, it will be a hybrid. And that's all.
All right. All right. Thank you, Kim. And reports and updates. Did you need to touch base?
Yeah.
Further-
So, reports and updates. Yes. So the last page of your packet is our capital projects report. We are in the process of putting together our new CIP for our budget cycle. But at this point, every month you'll hear me kind of report back on some of these major projects. Meadow Ridge Park is the 1.8 acre park that is between Meadow Ridge Elementary School and Timber Ridge Middle School on the east side of town. It is been in development for a while, and we are finally now feeling like we have the resources and the bandwidth to bring on that park. Had it been on the opposite side of town from the shop, we might not be having this conversation, but because of its proximity and the fact that we need to continue to serve our community members on the east side of town, we feel like it's really important. So it's in the land use process. We have a signed shared parking use agreement with GAPS for Timber Ridge, which is wonderful. A preliminary designs have been completed, and the hope is that we'll be able to bring it through construction this summer. I'll put it on the next agenda for us to kind of go through and actually show you a little bit more about the park and the design and whatnot as we'll be to that section. But we're really excited. It's more of a nature playground, so not your typical structures out there. We're gonna have some rocks and some logs and some nets, and we're really excited. So that is Meadow Ridge. It's not its official name. Well, it might be, but that is kind of our placeholder name for right now. Timberland Park soccer fields. This has been a wonderful partnership with AYSO. They've put probably over $100,000 in on the project between phase 1 and phase 2 to get it leveled and irrigated. Phase 2 is complete. We are so thrilled about that. Determining funding and timeline for that final phase. It's about the same amount of acres that was taken care of in phase 2. It's something that we're working with AYSO and our own funds to see how we're able to move forward. East Thornton Lake Natural Area. This property is in the north side of town, and at this point has a wonderful trail that Chuck has carved through there and bark mulched. He's just fantastic. Jill's out there working with him quite a bit. I don't know how we lucked out and got that guy. So in all seriousness. So it's a couple $1 million on our master plan in order to do a small parking lot out there, potentially another nature playground, and just have it be more passive recreation. That is not a number that we have in our budget, as well as in the past, there hasn't been an appetite from the community to really push that forward. Our previous commission had indicated, well, could we just get a parking lot out there? Maybe that could be enough to get us through. And when we costed it out, the cost for a 10-car parking lot would be over $400,000. And so it's expensive, and we're not able to just gravel it in with where it is on the proximity with wastewater and everything. It would have to be the full 9 yards. So at this point, that is not one of our top priorities, but we just kind of wanted to keep it on this list. If interest from this group, or if you hear other folks in the community that want us to push it up, please let us know. But East Thornton Lake is kind of at arm's reach for the foreseeable future. Henderson Park replacement. This is off Calapooya. It was a 60-plus-year-old playground out there. It has been replaced. We are finishing with some fit and finish at this point, some new benches, some trash cans. We're getting some interpretive signage out there about Amanda Gardner Johnson and the Hendersons, because it's in a historic part of town, and we're actually going to be working with the Albany Regional Museum to put together that interpretive signage. We've had some really lovely family members that have made significant donations in honor of their parents. So once we get the irrigation in, once we get the new street trees planted, once the street gets cleaned up, we're going to have a celebration out there. Not necessarily a ribbon cutting, because kids have been playing on it for a while, but we'll have some sort of way of saying, welcome back, it's completely finished. And Rick has good news, as we actually just got an actual bid to repave the tennis court out there. We tried last year and had no bidders. So dear heavens, it'll get a full makeover. And then the last one is Deerfield Park playground replacement. Deerfield Park was actually a GAPS property. It's about 10 acres. It's on the southeast side, a little by South Albany High School. It's a beautiful park, but it has, once again, 60-plus-year-old equipment out there. So it is on our replacement schedule because of the size of the park. And if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. It's going to take a pretty hefty chunk of change. So we're thinking it's probably going to be over $500,000 for us just to redo that area. At this point, we're hoping it'll be a 24-25 project. So stay tuned for that as we kind of continue to, fingers crossed. We're throwing a lot out of it right now. We just haven't been in the position recently where we've had funds. And so we're making the most of our city services fees and funds that we save through pretty drastic cost saving measures over the last couple of years to reinvest in our infrastructure, because if we don't do it now, it's going to get pulled, and that doesn't make our community any better. So are there any questions regarding the capital improvement project list?
I'm just really pleased to see something, at least it's, on the list for the East Thornton Lake Natural Area. So been in the works for many years.
I think the most exciting thing for me at this point is we have some rare historic breeds of fruit trees out there.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
varieties that they thought were completely extinct have been uncovered and discovered. Chuck's working on grapes out there. So there's talk with Rick and I and Jay, and once again, maybe going out to the regional museum to put some interpretive plaques, a split rail fence maybe out there to kind of protect them, and put some additional information. So as people are walking by, they're like, hey, what is that cool tree? Oh, wow. It's the only known
Oh, that'd be
variety
cool.
of this. So that
Yeah.
is a project that might be for the fall, as we're pushing pretty hard with a lot of other construction and staffing projects up until then. So hopefully 2024 will be our time to let that area shine a little bit.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Yes.
No problem.
No. Okay, is there questions of staff? Oh, it is still kind of a short capital projects list. Are you having to do very many playground I just, saw the one for replacement, but any of equipment repairs? Is there?
We are looking to
Yep.
do equipment replacement at Lehigh Park using some
Okay.
CDBG dollars. We're actually, we were in conversations with procurement yesterday to figure out if we can get the turnaround slated, as that's also been on the master plan since 2006 for improvement. If that's the case, we could potentially have equipment in the yard by July 1 with a fall
Good.
installation. I didn't want to get anybody too excited and put it on the list quite yet, as we're still working through it, but that would be the next playground replacement.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Another thing that dawned on me on the War Memorial, I know that they've been expanding out there at Timberland. So I think Ed Hodney had a lot of conversations with the organization out there about trying to kind of contain it in that certain area. Are they kind of starting to plan things to maybe infill in between each of the brick, statues, the brick area to kind of infill it more, or are they still wanting to expand the perimeter of it? Or have you even heard?
You want me to take that one, Kim? Yeah, they got a grant that through us, that we did through the state to add a little bit to it. And that grant, where they're just finishing up the work they have to do for that. It's still within that same basic area. It did expand it a little bit, but that should keep them going for quite some time. They'll have some space. At that point, it's going to be as big as it's going to get. The biggest problem they have, wonderful group of people, is that they're all getting aged, and they just really need to find ways to bring younger veterans or others into it. But the guys that are out doing the work are in their 80s, and they're really, really good. There's a few partnerships that work really well. The AYSO partnership works really well. This one works really well, and there's some others. But it is the footprint is as big as it's going to get. But right now there's some holes out there because we need to pour some concrete by the end of April so that we meet our grant deadlines.
Yeah, it was very disheartening to see that the damage that was done out there too. So it's just appalling. So okay, any other business then that you had, Kim or Rick?
Rick, I'll go and give the recreation updates really quick, and then I'll turn it over to you. Like I said, Rose isn't able to be here tonight. She's at the Oregon Festivals and Events Association Conference.
Oh,
But she wanted me to pass along that we are hiring for a recreation specialist down at our Riverfront Community Center. And this position will focus primarily on adult programming for older adults. So if you know anybody, please have them check out our website. Please have them apply. We want to bring an awesome person onto our team.
Is that a new position, Kim, or is that replacing? Or
It's replacing.
somebody?
It was a
Oh.
position that was furloughed during COVID because the center
Okay.
was closed. We brought it back we brought a staff member bumped back into it once we opened back up due to our layoffs. And then
Okay.
that position has been vacant since sometime during my maternity leave. And then
Okay.
just due to finances, workload, and all of that kind of good stuff, it's been, we needed a little bit of, we needed to make sure it was on solid ground before we could move forward with it. So
Oh,
you know
good.
somebody, please send them through.
Okay.
Spring Activate is coming into your mailboxes this weekend. Registration opens on Monday. Please, anything that you can do to help spread the word or let people know about our amazing rec programs that help to subsidize the rest of everything else that we do, please let them know. Maple Lawn Preschool. Maple Lawn was cut from the budget officially 3 years ago. 4 years ago? 4 years ago. Funding was made available through the fire department to save it for one additional year. And then we worked with the Greater Albany Public Schools. They came forward and they said, wait, we want to help save it. Give us a little bit of time. And so we came up with a 3-year transition. The end of the 3 years ends June 30th. So we have been working with GAPS for about the last year. They've been through a significant amount of transition. And so need a little bit more time to fully transition it over. And so what we are proposing to council next week is that we will continue to maintain the staff and supervise the staff. It will still remain at Maple Lawn. They will be paying rent essentially for running the program, but the actual administration will be run through GAPS. So it's a nice 50-50 split to let them really start taking things over, but in a way that'll be hopefully a little bit more manageable. And so we still haven't heard the final word back from GAPS, as they're still twiddling on some things, but we let them know that this is the proposal that we are taking to City Council next Wednesday, and hopefully we'll get a go on it. So we have families that are eager and ready to register, and we're doing everything that we can to continue to help serve those folks well, knowing that if we can't continue on with the preschool, we at least want to make the process as good as we can with the time that we have left. We are hiring for summer staff. If you know somebody 16 and older, they can be lifeguards, they can be camp counselors, they can work out at parks, they can water trees. Seriously, any skill set, indoors or outdoors, send your kids our way. So the application is super easy to fill out online. We like to think that we're raising brand new public servants. If you look at the directors team, our finance manager and our fire chief both started their professional careers as lifeguards. So I like to think that we are, future civic leaders are right in front of us. Registration software, we're getting a new one and we're currently working on configuration. We go live with summer camps first on April 10th, and everything else will go live for summer courses on May 24th. This is an incredibly heavy lift for our staff in the middle of budget, in the middle of planning for the busy season. We were supposed to go through this 5 months ago, but due to the registration software, some contracting and whatnot rollout issues, it got delayed. And so I just want to give a big thanks to our staff who are leaning in hard right now, trying to get it up and running. And then lastly, we are working on summer performers. As you know, because of the waterfront redevelopment, we're going to be heading out to Timberland for Summer Sounds and River Rhythms. So we are having a mobile stage out there. It's a whole new ball game. Lynn and Rick are very creative. And so Nicole and Rose and the whole team are figuring it out. Stay tuned for performers. They'll typically come out in April or May. So we look forward to seeing you all out there. And that's all I've got.
Okay. All right. Rick, did you have anything else?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I wanted to, again, say that Mary's position is very important for us. We already see some benefits, ability to track issues such as the graffiti, ability to deal with issues in the park that are kind of long-term that we can't really deal with on a short-term or in our time, and they don't go to the level of send officers out to deal with it. So she's getting on that stuff. That's really good. And the reporting part and the tracking and stuff is really, really important to us. We have had quite an uptick in graffiti. We've had these before, and it doesn't take very many people to, and particularly if they're competing in their graffiti, it doesn't take very many people to do a lot of graffiti. There are at least 3 different tags we see quite often. We did catch one of them on video. Haven't figured out who that was yet, but if you see a kid in a big check coat and with a longboard, we'd like to talk to him. And so it comes and goes. Graffiti at times is really bad. At times it's not so bad. We're finding more issues with people with mental health issues in our parks. Kim's working on getting us some training for that. And some of it's drug and alcohol related. Some of it is just mental health issues. It's where we're at right now. I think our police department is very compassionate, and yet doing everything they can. We try to be compassionate and do everything we can. But it does take a fair amount of our time that we wouldn't normally plan on. So that and because we have kind of this short window where we have some funding, which we haven't had for a long time, Kim has got us working like crazy trying to get some of these projects done. And it's a bit of a challenge right now because everybody's understaffed. So it's difficult getting the bids you need. It's difficult getting some of that. And the city purchasing procedure, while it's important, is not the easiest procedure to go through on different things. So we've got half a dozen different things of different sizes in the hopper right now. And it's a fun time. I'm glad that I get to do this at the end of my career. And so that's good. And I appreciate Kim's let's get it done attitude. But blood pressure, but we'll get there. So anyway, that's what I got.
Okay. Well, hopefully they can catch the kids doing that graffiti, but I am seeing it also on people's private properties and fences. And it's just, I remember it was our community, we had a community policing committee I think it was like in '97, I was on that. And we had graffiti was the big problem. That was this committee was formed. It was over graffiti, but it ended up being one kid that could just do so much damage. And they finally found the kid, and they said his whole bedroom was solid graffiti throughout. And they said, why the parents didn't ever know, that was taking place. But once that kid was caught, we didn't have it for years. But I just hate seeing it just starting back up again. But it just seems like, and it's not just Albany, it seems like it's everywhere is having to deal with it. So good luck on that, Rick and Kim. But thanks to Jill and volunteers getting out there to get it cleaned up. So, but okay, did you have anything else? Kim and Rick, okay. Any commission members have anything that they wanted to bring forward? Okay, not seeing any hands up. So, okay, then with that, our next meeting would be April 5th, and that will be online. And with that, we are adjourned. So thank you, folks. Hopefully we will have warmer weather April 5th. All right,
Fingers crossed.
bye-bye.
Thank you all so much.
Bye.
you.
Great
Thank
meeting.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.